And good morning to everybody. Happy January the 10th, 9/11 on the West Coast, 11 minutes afternoon on the East Coast. Welcome to the Pig and a Pickle Krueger Show. Brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California. Check them out in Corte Madera and Emeryville. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get yourself some brisket. Tell them the Krug sent you. Also brought to you by New York Style Italian Sausage. The only kind of Italian sausage I eat is New York Style Italian sausage. And then we're also brought to you by Marin Auto Glass, bottom of the screen, marinautoglass.com, 415-883-3030, and Underdog Fantasy and Mojo Fantasy. Check the link in the description and click the promo code Krug, K-R-U-E-G, and they'll match you up to your first $100. We're dual streaming this morning, which we're going to do in this window going forward here with the great Guy Haberman, who we really enjoy. Guy, good morning, man. How are you?
What's up, Larry? Good to see you. I'm brought to you by Tito's handmade vodka, crafted to be savored responsibly. A Tito's toast to you, Larry, whether you bring it in or visit or belly up to the bar. A Tito's and ginger, my personal favorite. Tito's handmade vodka.
There you go.
Game
Awesome.
Time app, Butcher Box. Also, get your meat, get your tickets.
Do you give away meat to guests? You know, that used to be a radio thing.
You know, our for being on the pregame show today, Larry gets $100 to Henderson Steaks, right? Stuff like that.
Robbie439 says, since Guy and Larry's been streaming together, I've gained 50 pounds because of brisket, chili, and alcoholic. And now I'm an alcoholic because of Tito's. I need help. Help, Robbie439. Great stuff. Great stuff. Thanks. Well, we are in the bye week, and the Niners, the NFL goes this weekend, sans your 49ers. That's right. The Niners get the bye. They're waiting around for either the Packers or the Eagles or the Bucks or the Rams. Why don't we start our conversation right there? I did the deep dive like the Niners have been doing this week, I'm sure, except I'm sure their deep dive is deeper, I hope, than mine, on these four teams. And I have decided that it's funny, the more you research, the more the picture changes. And if I
guess what you're going to, can I guess that the more you research, the more you like, is how you're going to describe this?
Yeah. The more I went into it fearing one team, and then I came out of it fearing a different team.
I'm going to guess that the more you research, the more you actually think the Packers are a good football team.
Yes. Yes. I'm a little bit afraid of the Green Bay Packers. Just because I'm a personnel guy at heart, and they have done a great job. When I say they, I'm talking about Brian Gutekunst. What'd you call me? I said Brian Gutekunst. He is the general manager of said Green Bay Packers. And, you know, they've got a good little combination going there with Matt LaFleur as their head coach and Brian Gutekunst as the general manager. And Gutekunst has done a really good job. And you look around their roster, and I thought, you know, without Aaron, you know, post Aaron Rodgers, that the Packers were going to be kind of in this kind of spinning their wheels territory for 5 years. No. That's not the case. They're loaded. They're really, really good. And it's because of Gutekunst in these drafts. You know, he traded up for Jordan Love in the 2020 draft. Now Jordan Love is playing incredible. 18 touchdowns, 1 pick in his most recent run. He's playing at a really high level. And then you look around and say, well, yeah, but he's got no weapons. Oh, no. Think again. They've got Aaron Jones still doing his thing, running and catching. You got A.J. Dillon, though he is a little banged up. But the rest of those weapons, the 2 young tight ends, Luke Musgrave, the kid from Oregon State, Tucker Kraft, you know, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed just had a 100-yard day last week. Bo Melton, Dontavian Wicks is really the hottest of their receivers.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's drafted Zach Tom at right tackle. He's drafted Rasheed Walker at left tackle. He's drafted Elgin Jenkins at left guard. All 3 of those guys are stalwarts. And then you look at their defensive line. Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, Rashawn Gary, all number one picks. Carl Brooks is playing his butt off. He was a 6th-round pick. And on the back end, you got guys like Darnell Savage and Jair Alexander. It's not a perfect secondary, but Anders Carlson is a nice young kicker. They drafted him this year in the 6th round. It's amazing. They got their kicker in the 6th round. They didn't have to use a 3rd-round pick on a kicker. But Gutekunst has done an amazing job, and the Packers are playing good football. And I think there's a very good chance, Guy, that they're going to roll into Dallas and beat the Cowboys and send Mike McCarthy into his next job, because I think Jerry Jones will fire McCarthy if the Cowboys lose this game. Green Bay's the 7 seed. Dallas is the 2 seed. I don't know how you feel about it, but personally, I mean, they're the youngest team in football. Their average age is 25.6 years of age. LaFleur's 56 and 27 as a career, career in the NFL as a record. And they started off 2-5, and now they've won 7 of their last 10, including 3 straight. I think they're going to beat the Cowboys. What do you think of Green Bay?
So if you check the tape, as I did, we have receipts. I didn't have time to actually record it and present it to you today. But 6 months ago, we did a video. It's called, people can find it on Larry's channel, The Ceiling and the Floor of the 49ers. It's you, me, and John. All 3 of us have different backgrounds. You have 12 Niner logos behind you in that video.
Those logos.
Before the police came.
Gone.
Gone. And you asked, who's going to be like a surprise playoff team this year? John said the Steelers. I said the Packers. And the reason I said the Packers was the weakness of the NFC, and that in the 3 drives of Jordan Love that I watched last year, I thought this guy's just he's got something. I don't know how much he's got, but he's got something. And then he went and had one of the quietest 32 touchdown, 11 interception seasons in recent memory. The fact that Aaron didn't really play this year for the Jets made it feel like the Jets got bad luck, but it made it feel like the Packers knew exactly what they were doing for the 2nd time in a row, which is pretty incredible. I don't think they beat Dallas. I like Green Bay. I'm impressed with them. I think their coach is excellent. I think their quarterback's got a chance. I'm not a huge people who have watched me or listened to me, Larry. No, I'm not a big believer in. I think Mike McCarthy's floor is high enough, but I don't think that's it. You're just not a championship. And people say, well, he's won one. I understand, with a Hall of Fame quarterback. I don't think the combination of him and Dak is a true. You're not winning a Super Bowl with that. I don't believe. I think they should move on from McCarthy. They would be lucky to lose this game if it means they can hire Jim Harbaugh, but they won't do that. Like, they're not desperate enough. But I think the problem is that you're asking Jordan Love now, who's not a rookie quarterback, but he's not a playoff quarterback. You're talking about the potential. And I guess this would change, right? If he had just gone on the road, beaten Dallas with a good defense, and then he's coming in to play the Niners. But I think a player who's not really familiar with the 49ers and is young and is on the road is at a severe disadvantage when it comes to the playoffs. Now, his coach is familiar, right? Like, there's all these matchups. You go through the list, the Rams and Niners are familiar. These Packers, like the Jordan Love Packers, not familiar, but LaFleur and Shanahan are familiar. The 49ers and the Cowboys are familiar. This Eagles, Niners, they're familiar. Like, there's so much familiarity in the NFC. They've even played the Bucs a few times in recent years. So I think they're in pretty good shape regardless of who they play. I think for Jordan Love, the X factor for me would be it's a really tough spot for him. And for that reason, I don't think Green Bay would beat the Niners. I think the I'm not going to say the worst combination, but the best quarterback coach combination in the NFC is Stafford and McVay, right? That's the best combo that the Niners could face. And so I just look at it like, which team plays good enough defense that if they've got a star quarterback, he can rise up and beat you. And, the Rams are that category. I don't think Dak is going to rise up and beat you, but that team, they got good players, even though they don't run the ball. I think it's a little too early for Jordan Love to win 2 road playoff games. Kaepernick did it.
Yeah, he did.
Out of the whack. Then Jordan Love comes. out of the Mountain West, but an old wax school, Utah State. But that would be, I think, a very, very, very difficult thing for Love to overcome right now. But I am pro Packers, and I'm with you. Like, there's just something that would be a really interesting matchup because it feels so different in the same way that the national championship game on Monday felt a little different. I think that would make that matchup pretty fun because you got the historics, but there's also something fresh about seeing Jordan Love instead of Aaron Rodgers.
The only thing about the Rams and the deeper dive I did on the Rams, I just can't talk myself into the Rams being more than 1/3 of a football team. They can score 30, and they will score 30, and they've scored 30 against some really good defenses this year. I mean, the Niners, the Ravens, I think the Browns,
they played really well on the road against the Ravens.
Yeah,
Stafford was excellent.
They almost won that game. I mean, they literally almost beat the Ravens in Baltimore. And it wasn't like the last week of the year, like, it wasn't a throwaway game. It was just a game, week 15 or whatever it was. But Aaron Donald and not a ton else on defense. I kind of like John Johnson a little bit on the back end for the Rams. I kind of like the rookie from Tennessee who had a big sack on Stafford, Byron Young, coming off the edge. A lot of speed there. Kind of like Kobe Turner and the year he's had next to Donald up front, but I don't see the edge rushers. I don't see the linebackers. I don't see the secondary difference makers. Taylor Rapp is now in Houston or wherever he is now at Buffalo. He's moved on. So I don't know. I mean, their special teams are bad. The Rams are 32nd in special teams DVOA.
It's historically bad. It's like one of the worst special teams ever.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't really fear. I mean, I fear the Rams just because divisional opponent, and they can score 30 and probably will score 30. So that it's going to be a close game, even against the 49er defense. But I mean, and the Rams for a defense are maybe one of the toughest teams to defend in the entire league. You got two receivers with crazy ball skills in Puka and Kupp. You got a quarterback who throws darts. You got another receiver in Tutu Atwell is a true burner. So, and they got three tight ends that all can catch the ball. And their O-line's a little bit better. Avila at left guard has been a real find. So I don't, they got a really good offense.
I don't think the recipe of Jordan Love dropping back to throw 36 times beats the 40. That's just not. I don't think that's the recipe to beat the 49ers if you're the Packers.
Yeah, no, I know, but they can hand it to Aaron Jones.
I'm just looking at this guy. He's throwing it 40 times a game almost. Yeah. They lost to the Giants and the Bucks. They beat the Panthers, the Vikings, and the Bears this month. Now, they beat the Chiefs and the Lions and the Chargers, too. They had that stretch that was awesome. But, it's not like their last month has been great. L Giants, L Bucks, 3-point win against Carolina, beat the Panthers, and then beat the Bears. I mean, beat the Vikings, then beat the Bears.
Yeah.
I think they've had a good year. Like, they are on the upward swing.
The only thing about Green Bay is that I'm looking at the way Love has played in the last month, and he's got last 8 games, 18 touchdowns, 1 pick. So he's taking care of the football. And the one thing about Green Bay is Savage can pick you off, Alexander can pick you off. They're developing. I mean, they've got some big time guys coming at the quarterback up front. I've really liked Carl Brooks a lot in the lead up to the draft this year. I know the Niners looked at him. He is a real talented guy. He's just a guy off the bench. I mean, but he's 300 pounds. I played at Bowling Green, wears number 94. But then Rashawn Gary is scary. I mean, he really is scary. Devontae Wyatt, equally scary. Kenny Clark, you used to be on this line kind of by himself, naked. Now he's got help. Preston Smith is a veteran pass rusher. Quay Walker can really, really run on that second level. Campbell's obviously been a good player for years. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I do. Do you think Green Bay has a chance to beat Dallas?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Everyone,
you're giving them a shot.
Dallas, like anybody. Dallas can win a bunch of games, but you can beat Dallas because they're not. I don't think Dallas is all. If you get in a close game with Dallas, they're going to screw something up. They're going to, if you put them down with 2 minutes left, Dak might lead the game-winning drive, but they also might move the ball on the spot and then get a false start. I mean, they're just not quite buttoned down enough, I don't think, to be unbeatable. Green Bay, by the way, 23rd in the league in yard per carry defense, almost 4.5 yards per carry allowed. On the road, that's almost 5. But yeah, I don't think Dallas is. People think I don't respect that. I respect the Cowboys to a certain degree. I just think their ceiling is capped, and I think they can lose at any moment. But I think they win this game.
No Stephon Gilmore. Does that change your opinion at all for Dallas?
No, I just think it's going to be really tough for Jordan Love to go there on the road and beat. Dak's had a good year. They can score too. If it's one of these games where you throw 37 times, fine. Dak will go throw the ball 37 times. He might throw 2 picks, but I just think this to me is the Cowboys' wheelhouse. Like, this is the kind of playoff game they celebrate. Like, yeah, we did it. But they don't play with the big boys in the postseason. They haven't. If they do, then there's a first time for everything. So if you're Dallas, you're hoping this is the first time, but this is the kind of game they win and pat themselves on the back for winning.
Robbie says Packers defense let Bryce Young throw for 300 plus yards. Not impressed. Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing, to feel good about is that Joe Barry's defense. Joe Barry's the D coordinator for the Packers. It's not been consistent, and as Robbie points out here, they've had their duds on defense. But I'll say this: Green Bay is coming. I mean, everybody talks about Detroit, and Detroit is an up and coming team. Don't get me wrong, but Green Bay is going to run with them going forward, and Green Bay is going to be a power in the NFC because those teams are hitting in the draft at a really high rate, and when you hit in the draft and you have that good of talent, that's eventually you're going to be there. And Green Bay and Detroit, I think, are going to be the main, two of the main contenders in the NFC with the 49ers going forward. And we'll see. Now that we're talking about a little bit about the playoffs, why don't we get into that a little bit? The playoffs start on Saturday with Cleveland and Houston in Houston. Cleveland's a 2.5-point favorite last I checked. This is CJ Stroud against the number 1 defense in football. How do rookie quarterbacks typically don't do well against the number 1 defense in the game. It seems like Houston, I really am impressed though with D'Amico. I think he's the coach of the year. But man, their offense misses Tank Dell in the worst way. And I just don't think that I don't think that Houston's going to get it done against Cleveland. I know Flacco turns it over, but Flacco's defense also bails him out by getting turnovers the other way. They take the ball away. Do the Texans make noise in the playoffs and win this game? Or, they are 3-1 in 3-1 in the 4 starts since Tank Dell went out, but their big playability is not near the same. Texans, it's like, I'm not sure which Texans teams is going to show up. They did lose to the Panthers, the Jets, and the Falcons, but then they also have beaten some really good teams this year. What do you think, Guy? I mean, Houston has beaten the Jaguars, the Bucks, and the Bengals. They beat the Bengals with Joe Burrow. These teams, Houston did lose to Cleveland 36-22 in Week 16 in Houston. That was the game where Amari Cooper just went crazy. He went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. 11 catches for 265 and 2 touchdowns. Do you believe in the magic of the Browns or the magic of the Texans? Because both these teams got a little magic going on.
Yeah, I believe in the defense of the Browns, but I don't believe in the magic of the Browns. I mean, at the end of the day, Joe Flacco is who he is, and it's been pretty incredible what he's been this year. If this game were in Cleveland, I would say no chance, no shot that Houston wins. But it's not. It's in Houston. And I still favor Cleveland a little bit just because of their defense. But the beauty for CJ Stroud is he's seen these guys. So I think the Texans have more magic than Cleveland. I think Cleveland's, defense is real, but Flacco, it will without question come back to bite the Browns that Joe Flacco is their quarterback in this postseason. It will. It'll bite them. I don't know if it bites them this week, but it will bite them. Now, if they win this game, the whole thing's like it's all gravy. Like it can't bite them against the Chiefs or the Bills or it's like
37 turnovers for the Browns this year. 37. That's a ton.
Yeah, that's why they got a shot. It's why they have a shot. But what do you think Flacco comes back to bite them this week?
Maybe it's respect because I saw Cleveland's defense up close, but man, Myles Garrett, maybe the best defensive lineman in the game. I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is maybe the best linebacker going. I mean, he is awesome. That guy is fantastic. He ranks second among all linebackers in run stop win rate. He's good going forward. He's good going backward. He's just special. I loved him in the draft. I wanted him so badly for the Niners, and they passed on him and went with Aaron Banks. And Banks is going to be a good lineman for 10 years, but JOK is crazy good. And he fell because I think he had a heart issue or something on the medicals that made him fall. But he's so good on that second level and covers so much ground. And then they've got Zadarius Smith with Garrett. Tomlinson's a big horse up front. They got Denzel Ward and Martin Emerson. Those guys have been just locking people down on the back end. I love that secondary of the Browns. I think defense travels. I'm going to take the Browns in this game. I think history. I'm going to go with history on this one. I mean, C.J. Stroud's really good, and D'Amico's really good, but to me, this is going to be a successful year for the Texans' big moment was last week, and that's their celebratory. That's the one that brings them back. I don't see a run here for the Texans. I think the Browns take I love teams in the playoffs, guy, that take the ball away, and the Browns had 28 takeaways. That's fifth in the league. They take the ball away, and they take the ball away pretty consistently. I like the Browns. I like the Browns to go into Houston and beat the Texans. I think it's going to be a good game, but I don't know. I mean, it's weird. The Browns were -9 in the regular season in turnovers, and the Texans had a +10 turnover differential this year. So on that front, you'd say, well, you know what? There's going to be turnovers in this game. The Browns are going to turn it over to the Texans. It doesn't always play out that way. I'm going to take the Browns on the road. I believe a little bit in the magic of Flacco. I also think there's a very good chance the Browns have a little run here. I think there's
you think Flacco can win 2 games?
I think Flacco can win this game, and then I think the Browns can knock off the Ravens.
They did it already once this year.
Yeah. And it's a divisional opponent. There's no fear. The Ravens are great, but it's Lamar in the playoffs, and he's 1-3. And last time he was the MVP, last time they were the 1 seed, they got bounced in the divisional round. So, give me the Browns. Give me the Browns. I think the Browns go on a little magic carpet ride for a couple weeks. It's going to end, but I think they get a win, maybe 2.
Well, I think if you're a Niner fan, you're rooting for the Browns because I think your scenario where somebody plays the Ravens out of this game, the Browns are much more likely to win that game. Revenge game for Flacco, don't forget. Then C.J. Stroud going on the road to play Baltimore. So I think from that perspective, you'd want Baltimore to win if we're giving you the fan viewing guide.
Let's get to the next game because the next game is going to be, I think, so fun to watch. It's Miami on the road in what's going to be probably 2-degree weather in Kansas City at Arrowhead. Kansas City's a 3.5-point favorite. It's the 5:00 game on Saturday. Kansas City leads the NFL, guy. They got 36 drops, 25 of them from their wide receivers. But Mahomes is 9-2 at home in the postseason. Miami hasn't won a playoff game in quarter century, and Miami comes in with all kinds of issues. They just signed Bruce Irvin. They just signed Justin Houston. Bradley Chubb's had an amazing year, done for the year. Jalen Phillips is a damn good edge rusher, done for the year.
We're talking Achilles and ACL, right?
Right. Van Ginkel was their third guy, not going to play.
Bradley Chubb did it 2 minutes left in a blowout.
I know.
That's the part that really hurts.
I know. And looking at it from the Miami perspective too, it's like, I mean, their defense with Fangio, I mean, first year coordinator, they were looking good, sacking the quarterback at a pretty good rate, second best in the NFL. They were 22nd in that category a year ago. And then they lose Jalen Phillips and they lose Bradley Chubb. And Chubb was awesome. Listen to Chubb's numbers. 54 quarterback pressures. The next Dolphin player, the next up player had 31. He forced 6 fumbles, the most in the league through week 17. So they don't have not their 2 top pass rushers. They're without their 3 top pass rushers. They're going to be leaning on Melvin Ingram, Emmanuel Ogbah, and they just signed Bruce Irvin and Justin Houston on Tuesday. Jalen Waddle is dinged up. Raheem Mostert's dinged up. Cameron Good, the former Cal Bear, got hurt in the last game. Xavier Howard's dinged up. But the real reason I don't like Miami is Tua is not the guy. Everybody's like, he's him. Tua is not him. And I never liked Tua as a quarterback, as a prospect. He doesn't read the field. He doesn't see the field. He doesn't read coverage. And Kansas City's got a very good defense. It's going to be freezing cold. Miami's only win against a winning team all year was Christmas Eve at home against Dallas. Fangio's helped their defense, but he's run out of bullets. I thought they made a terrible decision, guy, going with the in-season HBO Hard Knocks. That was just like, what? What are you doing that for? And they were great shows, by the way, awesome shows. And as a fan, we won, but as a team, they lose. So I like Kansas City here. I think Kansas City's not going to the bowl, but Kansas City's so eager, guy, to show everybody that, you know what, we're still the team, the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think they're not going to win this game, by 1 or 2. I think they're going to win this game in a rout. I love Kansas City, even against the number here. Where are you on this game?
I'm in agreement with you. Warm weather teams and cold weather with weak-armed quarterbacks is an awful combination. The Dolphins are lucky that this game is being played Saturday instead of Sunday, because it's going to be 0 degrees, 9 degrees on Saturday, and like
right.
-7 on Sunday. So if there's any saving grace, it's going to be colder Sunday in Kansas City.
Thank God we don't live in a place like that. I don't have the wardrobe for that. I mean, what do you even wear in those
first
conditions?
Of all, it's a better wardrobe because you get more layers. But I remember being in Boston a few years ago, and I called my wife. I'm like, this place is awesome. She's like, yeah, how about the winter? I'm like, yeah. But
now that's Boston, though. Boston's a vibrant city. I mean, Kansas City. I mean, after you have barbecue and go to like 4 different spots, it's time to go.
Hate the middle America, Larry. Look at
I love Chicago. I've been to
another one. I was there.
Been to Green Bay. I've been to Minneapolis. I've been to St. Paul. These are great places.
I told my wife in Chicago, I'm like, is this the greatest city in America? She's like, again, it's July. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're at Navy Pier.
Steak on the river. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah. The architecture
Wrigley.
Tour, Wrigley, the Museum of Science and Industry. Chicago's got a bad rap for all the crime, but Chicago on the north side, on the lakefront, and in the summertime, awesome.
Loved it.
The winter,
I saw this from,
not so much.
I saw this from BetMGM. Since 2017, the Dolphins are 0-9 straight up in games under 40 degrees. 40 degrees. This game
they played well last year against Buffalo in the cold.
It's going to be a high of 9.
Oh, God.
Fahrenheit.
No thanks. Did I ever tell you my Chicago story, by the way? So we get to O'Hare. I'm doing a layover from Army Navy. And so I'm coming from Philly, and it was like 25 in Philly. And we stop over in Chicago, and I got like a 2-hour layover. And they're like, welcome to O'Hare International Airport. Blah, blah, blah. Outside, the conditions are minus 12 degrees, minus 30 wind chill. And I'm like, I got to go out there. But then I'm like, but I don't really have winter clothes. So I'm like, man, I'm going to die out there. But then I see a lady, I look out the window, I see a lady walking to her car carrying a baby. So I'm like, if the baby can do it, I can do it. Right. So I run downstairs and I'm right about to walk out and the door's open and I can see how cold it looks. And I'm like, do I do it? Do I not? And I go, I'm going to do it. So I walk out and I'm standing there and I go like this. I'm putting my arms in the air and I'm like, and it was freezing. But I'm like, okay, but it ain't that bad. And the sky cap guy on the guy who's loading the bags goes like this. And I look up, I'm standing underneath a heater. But I was freezing.
Yeah.
So then he goes, go over there. So I ran like 30 yards over there. And I've got, head, everything wrapped, everything. It was literally like somebody was hitting me with knives. I mean, it was just like, my skin just started pinching. It just killed. And I ran back into the place. I'm like, oh my God, what in the heck? And I go into the bathroom at O'Hare, and everywhere that wasn't covered on my face was chapped red. And I'd only been out there for like 6 minutes. Crazy. I don't know how those people.
Time. Who was the guy? Who's the old Grant? Packers have a older coach named
Bud Grant. Bud Grant went with short sleeves.
It was zero. It was below zero wind chill.
That's
and
a tough
came out
bird.
for the coin toss a couple of years ago. You remember that? They brought him out like a golf cart, and he was in a short sleeve shirt.
Short sleeve shirt.
Like this man, like I don't.
That man lost a lot of Super Bowls. He was a good coach, though. Bud Grant. Yep. Yeah. But what a tough guy, man. That's unbelievable.
I love when coaches like Harbaugh would do this. He wouldn't wear a coat, but he'd have 9 long sleeve layers underneath his crew neck. You could tell like he would get bigger.
Right. Yeah.
But he wouldn't wear a coat.
Put on weight.
Yeah.
So who you like Kansas City?
I like Kansas City. Yeah.
Let's talk about Kansas City for a minute, because Kansas City leads the NFL with a bunch of drops, as I mentioned. Mm-hmm. Their offense this season dropped to 14th in points scored, 21 per game, 11th in offensive efficiency, 13th in offensive EPA. Mahomes had 7 yards per attempt. It was a career low, 14 picks, a career high, 27 touchdown passes, his lowest single season since 2019. And people, have pointed to the receivers, and the receivers have gotten raked, right? I mean, Sky Moore, no. MVS, no. I mean, Kadarius Toney, stay on sides, But Travis Kelce's having the worst year of his career. Didn't have 1,000 yards. The Chiefs' tackles are the most penalized tackles in the league. Jawan Taylor, their right tackle, has been penalized 19 times this season, 8 times for false starts, 6 times for holding. Donovan Smith has been flagged 8 times. And, they got a great interior with Thuney and Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey. I mean, that might be the best interior line in the game. But they're second in the league in passing attempts, 25th in rushing attempts. So they don't have a balanced offense. And they're among the league leaders in offensive penalties and turnovers. They did win the Week 9 matchup against the Dolphins in Frankfurt, in Germany. And we know the Chiefs have a kick-ass defense, second best scoring defense in the league. They only give up 17 points a game. A lot of speed on that second level. Willie Gay, Chris Jones up front, L'Jarius Sneed, who's headed to free agency on the back end. But what do you make of Kansas City in this thing? Because some people are like, oh, you know what? Kansas City's just bored, and it's Mahomes and Reed. But they're going to have to do something they've never done before, and that's venture out on the road in the playoffs. Now, this game's at Arrowhead, and I think they're going to rout. But I think they're also going to get beat somewhere along the line before Vegas. How do you see
Cleveland
KC?
beating the Ravens? So you think they're going to go to Buffalo and lose?
Right, and I think Buffalo's going to get them.
Which, is a very reasonable thing to predict. I am a pro Chiefs, not because I think they're messing around. They're not as good this year, and it's because of their weapons. And Travis Kelce, part of the reason he's not having as good of a year is he's got less around him. I mean, you just think about who are you going to make beat you at the end of the game? Justin Watson, whoever. So, I think it's pretty explainable why it hasn't gone well for Kelce. But I do think their defense, they got defense quarterback coach. That's just a hell of a combination. Like, if they're in the AFC Championship game on the road in Buffalo, that means whoever's coming out of the NFC is going to face either a really hot Kansas City team who's gone on the road probably twice and won, but maybe once, depending on how things shake out, or a Buffalo team that's going to feel red hot. And I think to me, Buffalo's has kind of got a higher stock right now. But if you look up and there's Mahomes and Andy on the road in the AFC Championship game on the road in Buffalo, against a Buffalo team that, they've had their moments too of not looking very impressive, and Josh Allen at any moment. So I'd probably, going into that game, if you've beaten, I'd probably pick Kansas City, I think, in that game. I'd probably take Mahomes and Andy Reid in that game.
On the road in Buffalo. Here's the thing about Buffalo, though, Guy, is that Buffalo, was 6-6, and they're on the edge of literally having their whole season flushed down the toilet, and maybe McDermott getting dumped. They dumped Dorsey. They lost to Denver. Buffalo's lost some bad games this year. They really have looked bad at times. But then since then, they've been in kind of playoff mode.
Yeah.
And, that's the thing that scares the hell out of me. They were 6-6. They've won 5 in a row. If they get to Vegas, they will have won 8 in a row. And Josh Allen, we all know, is only 500 in the playoffs. But, if you look closely at those numbers, his teams haven't won, but he's played well in the playoffs. It's not like he's played bad. But he has a career high 18 picks this year. He will make mistakes. But they got a killer line. Deion Dawkins is just sick. That offensive lineman they have, he is just an amazing player. They got Daquan Jones off the IR on their defensive line. They've won 5 straight and 6 of 7. I just think they've been in playoff mode for so long that they are resilient.
You think they're destined, is what it sounds like.
I just think that they're the team that I fear the most out of the AFC, because if they get to the Super Bowl, as I said, they will have won 8 in a row with a quarterback that and I know is going to win Super Bowls at some point. So it's just like, that scares me. They scare me a lot. Now, I think, is Gabe Davis out? I think Gabe Davis might be out. But that they scare me a lot. They really do. It's 5 years in a row. They've had double-digit wins. They've been the division champ 4 years in a row. Josh Allen's teams are 63-30 in the regular season. He's only been 4-4. He's only been to 1 AFC title game. So to me, I'm hoping somebody knocks them off, but there's no chance, 0 chance that Buffalo loses to the Steelers. Right?
Right.
Or do you give Steelers any chance?
No.
Mason Rudolph on the road. No.
I can't believe they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that can't happen. It can't happen.
But nothing to add on the Steelers.
Yeah. They have no TJ Watt. And they weren't good enough anyway. Their defense isn't good. They're leaning on Mason Rudolph. The Steelers. To me, the Steelers. Minkah Fitzpatrick has a knee injury. He suffered it in week 15. He hasn't practiced since. He's their best player on the back end. And the Steelers, their defense doesn't show up in the playoffs. There is no JJ Watt. I think the Bills rout in that game. But I'm moving on more to the next round, and I think Buffalo, Kansas City is going to be one for the ages. All right, so that's the morning game Sunday. How about Green Bay, Dallas? We already talked about that. Rams, Detroit.
The only
What
thing
do
we
you
didn't mention was that Saturday night game's on Peacock. So get your
Peacock downloaded?
$6 Peacock download. Yeah,
See, I have Xfinity. It comes with the Peacock. But beware of a key moment and that Peacock freezes on you. And it can happen. Then you got to reboot. You got to reboot the whole deal. There's going to become a time we're going to be tuning into the Super Bowl on like Netflix. I can picture it. It's not my favorite thing to do, but whatever. It's the future. Rams Lions. Where are you with this one? Because this is the chic pick. Everybody's going, oh, you know what? Rams. But and Detroit's got Sam Laporta. You saw the way his knee bent last week. He's not playing. There's no way he's playing. If he plays, he's like the toughest person ever. But Detroit's a field goal favorite. And does Goff get his revenge here? I'm taking Detroit. I know the Rams are good and the Rams can beat anybody, and a lot of people think the Rams are going to win that game. But I just think that Jared Goff is going to get his revenge. It's the first playoff game in Detroit since 1993. They haven't won a postseason game since 91. And I like the Lions. I think the Lions, I don't know how they're going to win it. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, kind of a shootout. But the Lions' defense is a little bit of a concern. They've given up a lot of big plays. And Brian Branch, the rookie safety, who's been phenomenal, is not healthy. So he's, so I'm a little concerned there. But Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is back. Even though it's Stafford making a return to Detroit, I like the Lions somehow, some way. I think the crowd, the excitement. I think they'll play a big game, and I think they'll beat the Rams in a shootout. How do you see that game?
So Detroit would be the last place I'd want to go in the NFC this year, just given how unhinged it's probably going to be, right? Because of how long they've been starved and they finally got the postseason. And I don't think that necessarily works in the Rams' favor that this is a Stafford revenge game. Stafford's a really good player. I don't think a revenge game elevates his game. I think it may de-escalate his game. Like, I think he might maybe try to make a few plays that aren't there. We know with him, he'll throw that yellow ball, and he's done it against the Niners, into trouble and throw interceptions. So the Stafford revenge angle to me is, I don't think it helps the Rams at all. Does the Goff revenge angle? And really, by the way, there's no Stafford revenge. Stafford's not getting revenge for anything. It's the Goff, as you said, you're correct. It's the Goff revenge game. The problem with Goff is I don't think there's not much he can do. He's not going to put the Lions on his back and carry them. I don't think. It's just not in his skill set, but he can be very efficient, and he's got a very good offensive coordinator.
This is his Super Bowl, though. McVay quit on him.
Yes, this is his. Yes,
he wants this. He wouldn't. And Goff is the kind of guy, him because you cover the Pac-12. Goff's the kind of guy that this will mean more to him because he wants to get back at McVay for quitting on him.
Yeah, for quitting on him. And I think by the end, it was not a great. I don't want to say it wasn't a great experience for Jared, but I think there were some things that I don't think it was the perfect relationship between those two. Partly because I think, in part because of the way that Sean felt like he needed to manage Jared in games, right? Like in the headset right up until it cuts off, kind of telling him what to do. And so I think not just the way it ended, but the way it had gone, I think kind of creates a very strong desire by Jared to go beat Sean. That said, again, I got to lean quarterback coach here. Now, Ben Johnson's the coach that runs the offense. And Dan Campbell's done a hell of a job. There's a lot of emotion there. I've not been from the beginning, I've not been a Lions can go deep believer. Now, winning this game doesn't qualify as deep. And the Rams, the only hesitation I think on the Rams is that they're such a sexy pick. but I do like them more. A little bit of the postseason pedigree thing too, having been there, done that. I worry from a Lions perspective, Larry, that they already won their championship when they got to the postseason.
Yeah.
That's the thing
Yeah.
that they hadn't had for so long. They got it. Now what? So, whereas the Rams have been a little like your description of the Bills, kind of fighting for their lives for a long time. There's been no kind of up until the very end, no ability to go into cruise control. They've had to scratch and claw to get here with a group that has some legitimate postseason experience. So I am picking the Rams in this game.
Let's get to the last one, and we'll hit some Niner stuff before we jet. Eagles, Tampa in Tampa. A lot of people say, hey, man, the Eagles are lucky. They get the one team they can beat. I don't know that they can beat them. Philly was 10-1. They finished 1-5. They look terrible. A.J. Brown's now out. Hurts has got damaged fingers. Philly had 70 sacks last year. They've got 43 this year. What's wrong with Philly? I mean, it looks like Sirianni looked like he was a coach on the edge of being fired. I can't imagine that's the case, but he was very, very nervous in the last presser. What do you make of Philly's demise here in their fall? I mean, since the Niners beat them, they have been in a free fall.
I think it's a few things. I do think that Sirianni is on the verge. I mean, I think he's on the
really. You think he's going to be out?
How could he not be?
Really? The guy was in the Super Bowl last year.
Here's the question you have to ask yourself.
Wow.
How do we fix this? The question you have to ask is, how do we fix it? And if your head coach is not part of the solution, and he doesn't coach offense, he doesn't coach defense, and he doesn't have some historic track record of organizational management. So what is it that Nick Sirianni does that solves the problem that you have right now?
He's really good at doing this.
God, I love that clip. I don't want him to go for the record. But
for that alone, I'm enjoying this.
There was this question of like, are they going to change offensive coordinators? And of course, the answer is no, because he was already the offensive coordinator once, and they silently, secretly, in the middle of a season, took play calling duties away from him and gave it to Shane Steichen. So he lost Steichen, he lost Gannon. If you watch the Cardinals this year, you know that Gannon's a good football coach.
Yeah.
And if you watch the Colts this year, you don't even need to have watched them. Just go look at the record after what happened to Anthony Richardson. Like, Steichen's a good coach. So in his defense, he lost two really good coaches, but it exposed the fact that he's not part of he doesn't know how to fix this problem for them. So I think, given the level of, I think it's a pretty attractive, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, I think it's an attractive job. Now, if you take that job, you don't get to be in charge of player personnel. But that's okay. Howie Roseman's pretty damn good at it. So if if you've got a good relationship with Howie, then it's a great mix. So I think they'd have to. I mean, think about what they've done. They moved off of Doug Peterson, and he won the Super Bowl. They moved off of him very quickly. So I think they'd be crazy not to consider moving off of Sirianni, whether he wins this game or not, but especially if he loses this game. Now, there's a scenario where they win 38-10 and everyone starts wondering, like, are they back? But I think part of the problem is like you said, there was an injury issue with them. Their defense is not nearly as good as it was. And you got to really wonder whether or not Jalen Hurts is going to turn out to be worth the money. Now, I do think, I'll defend Hurts for a second. I think he's hurt. He is hurt. He's looked like it all year, I've thought, with his leg. But I still think they really got to question whether or not they paid too much too soon. But Sirianni's on the hot seat. He's got to be on the hot seat. To me, he's on the hot seat whether he's coaching in Philadelphia or in Media Market 32. We've seen a lot this year. Look at what Kyle Shanahan's done when things have looked like they were about to fall apart. He's found a way to get a team to the playoffs. McVay. Last year, I thought McVay did a hell of a job with a team that looked like they were going to be a 2-win team. And then this year, people thought they were going to be a 3 or a 4-win team, which I thought was crazy because of Stafford. Stafford turned out to be healthy. They're a playoff team. So, that's what it looks like, Larry. When Aaron Rodgers goes away, what does your coach do with the next quarterback? He goes to the playoffs, LaFleur. That's what it looks like. That's what you're paying these guys all this money for. And that's not what Sirianni has shown a capability of doing. So, I
It's an
thought
amazing fall, though, isn't it?
amazing fall.
70 sacks to 43 sacks. Fletcher Cox maybe got old, but they still have a lot of talent on that defensive line. I just think that they're going to have a hard time beating Tampa because you can't beat the New York Giants. You're getting destroyed by the New York Giants. You're getting worked at home by Arizona in a gotta have it game, and now you're going to roll into Tampa and beat this Buccaneers team.
Oh, Larry,
this is a major step up in class from the teams they've lost to the last couple of weeks. So Philly's going to have to be very much on their game, and I think there's unhealth for the Eagles on both sides of the ball because I saw a breakdown this week, guy, where they said no team runs less motion than the Eagles. So they don't really challenge defenders mentally pre-snap. And they're having busted plays against the Giants last week like it was they had their third team in there in the final preseason game. They look so disconnected from one another. I think Tampa beats them. But
they changed coordinators this year and didn't fix anything on defense.
Well, Matt Patricia. Sean Desai was the wrong call. Patricia was the wrong call. They, just kind of shows when you lose both your coordinators and they're good, and you don't replace them with really equally good guys or better guys. It's hard. They lost a lot of coaching smarts in one off season, and people made it seem like it was no big deal. It's a big deal.
Well, it was a big deal to lose. They didn't just lose to the Cardinals. They lost to Gannon. Remember the story was like, they tried to spin it like Gannon wasn't – they were mad because Gannon – the timeline of him taking the Cardinals job and them not knowing cost them why am I blanking all of a sudden?
What's that? You're talking about –
our guy, the Dolphins defensive coordinator.
Fangio.
Cost him Fangio. Thank you. And I think they were pissed at Gannon. So they didn't just lose. They lost to, Howie's got some enemies. We've talked about that over the years, and they lost to one. So I think that made it doubly worse that Gannon beat them. So I think he's in a bad spot. I think they need to change coaches. I think Dallas, if they want to win a Super Bowl, has to change the coach. But, I think Harbaugh.
I agree.
I think Harbaugh at either one of those places would be scary.
Where do you think Harbaugh goes?
Raiders.
Really?
Well, he's got to take the Raider job or the Charger job.
I would take the Charger job. I think Harbaugh is really smart, and Harbaugh came to the Niners because he knew Singletary was a circus, and he knew the Niners had a team that was ready to win. And I think he's going to go to the Raiders. I think he's going to go to the Chargers because he knows Staley was a circus, and they have big-time talent, and they're ready to win.
Well, what was the famous line Mark Davis told Jim? They played the game at I think it was the game at the Coliseum where Kaepernick at halftime, had some fan interaction. Do you remember that? A bunch of Raider players were yelling at him.
Okay.
But I think before the game, Mark Davis and Jim Harbaugh met on the field, and Mark said to Jim something along the lines of, "You guys are a circus. You're stealing our thing." Kind of made a joke, like that's our thing, being a mess. You're stealing our thing. It was Harbaugh's fourth year.
Right.
So I think those two have a relationship. And if your prerequisite is Jim will only go where there's a circus, well, the Raiders certainly will have qualified for that as well. So they got Herbert. I mean, you think about it, he's going to go from a guy who couldn't win the big one, quote unquote, to, if you told me he's the Chargers coach, I'd put them in the AFC Championship game within the next 2 years, to having a chance to win a national championship and a Super Bowl in like a 4-year span, which, again, if he goes to the Chargers, he will have a chance to win the Super Bowl. It is tried and true and proven, Larry. He goes to San Diego. He has 11 wins twice in 3 years. They hadn't had 11 wins before or since. He goes to Stanford and brings them from the depths of the ocean to an Orange Bowl and 12 wins and Andrew Luck. He goes to the Niners and goes to 3 NFC championship games in 3 years. He goes to Michigan and takes them to the national championship and 3 straight college football playoffs. It is one of the most inarguable resumes in the modern era. Does he win when you get him? Yes, 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 yes. 4 times in a row in the affirmative. It doesn't just like win 11 games. Takes you to or on the precipice of championships. So I think it's a no-brainer for the Chargers. I think it's a no-brainer for him and the Chargers, but it just there's some weird pull there with him and the Raiders. I don't quite get it. The mystique of it all, something about it, you know. He coached there, just like he's a Michigan man. I saw he's getting an M tattooed on his shoulder this week. It wouldn't if you told me he gets 2 tattoos and the other one is the shield, silver and black, I'd believe you. There's just something about the pull with him and the Raiders. I don't quite get it, but it's there.
His brother's in the AFC. People that I've talked to said he doesn't want to be in the AFC because of his bro. I'm thinking there's a chance that David Tepper throws him mega bucks. I also think the Bears, that could be very attractive to him.
I think what would be interesting about the Bears.
Commanders, don't forget the Commanders. If Bob Myers gets Adam Peters, does Adam Peters say, yeah, it didn't work out in San Francisco, but guess what? We'll get Harbaugh. We'll revive an iconic brand. We'll get out of FedEx Field. We'll build a new stadium.
Jim will fill the stadium.
Yeah, he'll fill the stadium. We'll reignite our iconic brand. I bet you anything he goes to the NFC, stays out of his brother's way, and goes to – don't sleep on Carolina because David Tepper – he knew he was going to be fined hundreds of thousands of dollars to throw that ice, and he still threw that ice. This guy's got money to burn.
I know, but Jim doesn't need the money. Michigan's offering him. I mean, it matters. Don't get me wrong. But think about Jim Harbaugh. Who has he coached? The last 3 stops. Iconic organizations, right? Iconic.
Yeah. Well, Bears, he played for the Bears.
Iconic. No, so the Bears, the interesting thing about the Bears, I don't know the relationship between him and Kevin Warren, who was the Bears president, previously the Big Ten commissioner. There's, I'd have to go back and look like the dynamics of investigations in the Big Ten. That was more Tony Petitti, the new Big Ten commissioner. But yeah, that'd be just something to ask. I don't know exactly, but I don't know. That'd be something to ask the Big Ten people about. It's like, would Kevin Warren want to hire him? But I just saw today Eberflus is staying. Now, I guess that can change, but it looks like Eberflus is back.
Yeah, no, I don't think
Getsy's out.
The Bears are they're not, I don't see them going Harbaugh, even though it makes a lot of sense. I think Harbaugh would consider the Bears, but I think the Commanders, though, make sense. What do you think of this 420 Savage? If Shanahan can't win this season, he's a choke artist. Niner fans are going to want Harbaugh back. Who's the better coach, Jim Harbaugh or Kyle Shanahan?
I think it's Kyle, but I think it's Kyle. Part of being the coach is managing the whole operation and keeping it moving forward. And the one thing we've seen with Jim is it does end. Now, if it's ending for Jim, it's ending with a national championship. Michigan won. Like institutionally, they're worse off without Jim Harbaugh. So it was a win for them. But part of the job is also doing it at a level that can be maintained for 5, then 10, then 15 years. Like in an ideal world, 20 years, whatever, 15 years. So I think Kyle's the better coach. I think part of why he's the better coach is he does the stuff that Jim does. Plus, I think is better at calling plays. Is better. He actually calls the plays, right? But his teams want to play the same way. Like he has, to me, it's the perfect. Like if I were hiring a coach, I would hire an offensive play caller who has a defensive mentality. That is, I think, like the best combination because you get tough physical teams, which you have to have. You have to have it, right? If you're going to win a championship at any level. So I don't think look, there is not a scenario where Kyle can lose before the Super Bowl this year and have it not feel horrific. Like truly.
No,
you
I
can't
agree.
lose the Cowboys at home. You can't lose. Any of these teams beating you in the NFC will feel like a choke. It will. Now,
I agree.
I don't think he's a choker. I do think Kyle Shanahan can win the big game. I do think it's a matter of time before he does. But until he does, I must acknowledge it is also a fair argument and a fair debate. Who do you think is the better coach?
I think Kyle's the better coach because Kyle's offense produces points, and Harbaugh is Bo Schembechler with better personality recruiting wise, more high energy recruiter. He's the 2024 version of Bo Schembechler. Now,
John told me the other day they might have 17 draft picks. People are saying they got it's
they're
one of the
awesome.
most talented. Did you see that clip of PJ Fleck? The
No,
Minnesota coach was circulating yesterday. It was from a post-game press conference. But he said, I think Michigan's the best team I've seen in 11 years. And he goes, one of the reasons is, he said, I don't know if this is true. He had just walked off the field. He said, somebody just handed me a sheet that said, of the 75 guys they traveled, 73 of them played. Like their positional depth, their depth of talent was really incredible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All those guys are awesome. Mikey Sainer still one of the captains, converted wide receiver, really good corner. Chris Jenkins up front. The other corner with the size outside, he's tremendous. Both of those running backs are NFL. That tight end is NFL. I thought their left tackle, 73, is going to be a steal of an offensive lineman. I forget his name, Ladarius something. What's that? Henderson,
Ladarius
yeah.
Henderson.
Yeah, love him. That guy looks fantastic. Probably going to be a mid-round steal at tackle. Yeah, Eagles. I mean, Michigan's absolutely loaded. Both those backs are incredible. I'm not the receivers. I don't know. I'm not a fan of McCarthy at all. I do not like JJ McCarthy. I don't think he's much of an NFL quarterback, but a lot of people like him. What do you think of this one, though? Eric Hernandez says if the Cowboys or Eagles lose, they would fire their coaches and go for Harbaugh. I definitely think Dallas would. Could you imagine Jim Harbaugh in Philly? Oh, my God. That would be unfreaking believable.
Who's got it better than us and the city of brotherly love? I did a video yesterday. I said everyone should be lucky that I don't think the Cowboys are desperate enough to hire Jim, because you only hire Jim when you're desperate, right? Those are the programs that hire Jim. They're desperate. They're at rock bottom. Michigan was his alma mater and was desperate and at rock bottom. The Niners were at rock bottom. Stanford was at rock bottom. And I think everyone, the entire NFC should be thankful that Dallas isn't hiring Jim. If they were to hire Jim, that'd be scary, because he'd be in the NFC Championship game next year.
Oh,
immediately.
I don't want to see Dallas. I don't want to see him go to either of those spots, because then, it's going to make it so challenging for the Niners. John Edwards says, I will never forgive Harbaugh for not running Gore near the goal line during the Niner-Ravens Super Bowl, or for calling the timeout. You don't call a timeout when you got an old, decrepit defense that can't hang within a country mile of your quarterback running or your running back running, and you say, you know what, I'm not going to run those guys. I'm going to have my quarterback, who doesn't have good accuracy or touch, try to throw with accuracy and touch, and run the Michael James, but don't run Frank Gore. I mean, Harbaugh gagged. It was just off. That was a gag Super Bowl. That was on him for sure. People criticize Kyle for the Miami Super Bowl. KC was better. Niners had a big lead, but KC was coming. They had scored tons of points and scored in bunches that year. The Ravens gag was a true gag. Okay, a couple more, and then we're over an hour here, Guy. What's your time like right this morning? I don't want to.
We can keep going.
Okay, because we're having a great stream here. We got almost 600 people in the room. We're having a good time. People are enjoying the conversation quite a bit. We haven't even gotten to the Niners really, but let's hit a couple things on the Niners. One, we mentioned Peters. What's your take on Peters? I mean, from what I'm looking at, Bob Myers has been hired to find a new coach. He went to UCLA. Peters went to UCLA. They're trying to build up that brand and get out of FedEx Field and change the whole ugly cloud around the Commanders and try to find the Jack Kent Cook, Joe Gibbs era again. And Myers, I think, has been charged with finding the next head coach and are finding the next personnel czar. And I think he thinks Peters is it. I want to see Jed do whatever he needs to do. If Peters is the key guy to, you can pay executives whatever you want. You can change titles. You can give them more control. I don't think Lynch wants to be doing this forever. I think Peters is the guy with the personnel chops. He's also from Cupertino. If I'm Jed, this is the guy I extend for. Give him whatever he needs to keep him around. You can There's all kinds of money in the game right now. What is your read on Peters? You think he's going to jump to the Commanders, or do you think Jed and the Niners do what they need to do to retain him?
Well, what amount of money can you pay that replaces being able to run your own organization? There's
maybe the promise that you get to run this organization
coach
3 years from now.
Will Muschamp, GM in waiting.
Possibly.
I mean, does he think John Lynch is going to leave?
Well, don't you think John Lynch is going to leave?
Well,
John Lynch he's too normal to work 120-hour weeks forever. He's got too many other things going on, man. The guy lives in San Diego with a beautiful family. I mean, after he gets his ring, he's already in the Hall of Fame.
You think it's I've wondered with Lynch, is it about the chase or is it about the destination? Maybe it's the destination. Maybe it's one ring.
If I live in San Diego and I have a beautiful wife and kids, I'm getting my ring and I'm hitting the beach.
You mean Amazon?
Or that's what I'm saying. I mean, a multi-million-dollar opportunity elsewhere.
So if they win a Super Bowl this year, you think John Lynch is gone?
Yeah, I kind of do, actually. Or not gone, but out of the pressure cooker and into more of a cushy president role.
Well, that's a great sell for Adam Peters. I mean, that keeps him, I think. Why wouldn't it? But he's got to believe that that's what John Lynch is doing. And even then, the question is, there is a different level of power when you're Kyle Shanahan's GM, president of football ops, versus Josh Harris hires you and gives you whatever, you are fully in charge of the coach that you hire. Now, should you be at all a little bit, what would be the word? If you had a first-time owner, would you hesitate? I would. The good news with a first-time owner, he might give you carte blanche. He might give you a blank checkbook. Just paid $6 billion for the team. The bad news for a first-time owner is never done it before. And we've seen it repeatedly. First-time owners make a lot of mistakes. The same mistakes. And they involve firing people very quickly, hiring people quickly, firing people quickly, chasing their investment with more money. Right, we're seeing it. And I'd be very interested. The story on Ben Johnson was he didn't take the Panther job as the head coach last year because he just really felt like he needed to hang around Dan Campbell for another year, understood he was young, needed more seasoning. Maybe Matt Rule, maybe somebody around Matt Rule, maybe somebody also told him, like, hey, man, it's pretty crazy in Carolina. You're going to be able to wait and get another job. This isn't the job you should take. It wasn't just, I'm going to wait because I think that's what's right for me. So that would be a hesitation for me. Now, maybe you sit down with Josh Harris and he's like, no, I'm going to be hands off. Whatever you need, I'm stepping away and it's your show. And if that's the case, and you know what he would say too? He'd be like, look at what I'm doing here to hire you. I'm hiring Bob Myers. I'm hiring Rick Spielman, which I don't know why he wouldn't just hire Rick Spielman. Does Rick not want the job? That seems like a home run hire if you're Washington. So
I don't. What team has he coached?
No.
You're talking about Rick Spielman. You're talking about Rick Spielman. Okay, I thought you were talking.
He's using him as it's him and Bob or consultant.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So just hire Rick.
Yeah, you could.
I saw Rex Ryan said this on TV 2 days ago. He's like,
maybe Rick's a little long in the tooth. He's been doing the internet stuff for a couple of years now. He was a GM for a number of years.
61.
Maybe he doesn't. What's that?
Yeah, but maybe he's only 61 years old.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't want to do it. Rex Ryan was adamant on TV 2 days ago that that's what Washington should do. And that if he were Rick, he'd be like, hey, I got a candidate right here. And maybe Rick then hires, you do the thing kind of like John. You think you bring somebody else in and they become the person running the team within 2 years. But I do think that'd be pretty attractive for Adam. And yeah, it'd be great if you could increase his salary by 50% and make him the John Lynch's soon to be immediate successor. And John kind of graduates as he already kind of did once. That'd be ideal. But the best thing the Niners have going for him is geography, right? That he's in this area. He wants to be in this area and he can't change that anywhere else. So if that's the most important.
What's Peter's family deal? Does he have kids? Cause a lot of times it's like they're younger kids.
That's my understanding. I don't know for sure.
He's a young guy. I mean, he could be
work together, but
I mean, I mean, I think Kyle's going to be here for at least a decade. Jed's relatively young. Don't they want that young GM that knows their culture and is thriving in their culture? And when I say culture, I mean you understand the family dynamic, the Parag dynamic. I don't know. It seems like Peters and Kyle would be almost the perfect combo going forward with Lynch in a president role or Lynch back in the booth at Amazon.
I agree, and I think Kyle has not had to change his true partner. They've lost a lot of people out of the front office, but he has not yet had to change that partnership, right? And it's got to be pretty comforting to him. So if I were Kyle, I'd be putting the full court press on Adam. Adam, Adam, you had to practice a lot. Adam's like John; he's out there a lot. He's around, has a good kind of energy to him, I think, which you need to counterbalance Kyle, who also has a good but different energy to him. And so I think he has some of the qualities that John Lynch has in terms of personality that make the dynamic work. And maybe it's telling that they've lost so many front office people in recent years. Maybe those are people that know that there is a succession plan in place and it's not them, and that Adam is waiting it out until John Lynch is done, and he'll be there, right? If you thought Adam Peters, if you're the number 3 guy on the Niners,
Rand Carthon maybe a couple
and
years
you
ago.
think and you think John, now it's hard to turn down a GM job, but that Titans job is crazy right now. And you think John Lynch is not going to be around after you win a championship, and you see Adam Peters interviewing nonstop, then it'd be very easy if you're the number 3 guy to go, oh, this thing's going to open up for me if I just hang out here for 5 more years, because John will be gone and Peters will be gone, and then it'll be my job. But that's not what people have done. Like, people have left. So maybe that's an indication that they believe that Adam is, but Adam's taken a lot of interviews. Like, you take enough interviews at some point, you probably take a job, you would think, but maybe it's just what your agent tells you to do.
Yeah, I mean, it might be just playing the game. Let's hit a couple of these supers. John Edwards, become a new YouTube member. I always give a little clap. Johnny, thank you for jumping aboard. Appreciate you, brother. We got this one from Charlie Sinclair. Harbaugh and Herbert would be generational. Absolutely. Absolutely. Plus, you could, the competition that Harbaugh could then have with McVay as their who's got the better team and could win the next Super Bowl in LA. I mean, let's be honest. Anybody who can win the Super Bowl, and if the Chargers could under Harbaugh could win the Super Bowl in LA, and jumpstart that market. I mean, the Chargers are like a team without a home. I mean, they really have no home. That would be very intriguing. And I just think if you look at the way Harbaugh took the Niner gig, I see the Chargers as the exact same way. They are the most underachieving team. I was shocked they fired Telesco. In fact, that's the guy that I'd want to hire if I were an owner as a GM. Give me Tom Telesco. This guy had a great draft this last year, and he's dumped. I mean, he's done a really good job. Now, Quentin Johnson, not that much, but look at all the rest of those guys. They got the SC defensive end. He drafted Derwin James. He's drafted a bunch of good players. So I kind of like Telesco. Bazzi Miance's
pair him with a good trainer, though.
Yeah, exactly.
All these guys get hurt.
I know. It's true. Bazzi Miance's thoughts on the NFLPA's all-pro team list, and he snubs. I'm looking at that list right now. It's Mahomes, Josh Jacobs, Kyle Juszczyk, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Travis Kelce, Trent Williams, Joel Bitonio, Jason Kelce, Zach Martin, Lane Johnson on offense. On defense, it's Nick. Wait a second. Is this the right list? Seems wrong. Yeah, no, I guess it is.
No, sorry.
And then in defense, they got Bosa, Garrett, Chris Jones, Aaron Donald, Dexter Lawrence, Fred Warner, Roquan Smith, Pat Surtain, Darius Slay, Minka Fitzpatrick, Derwin James. Well, I mean, there's a couple. Tyreek. Yeah, where's Tyreek? Jefferson's a hell of a player. He doesn't belong anywhere on this list.
Has he been on the football field in a month? When was the last time he played a game?
Yeah, I mean, come on. There's no way I'm taking Jefferson.
He didn't play against the Niners. That was half.
I would take Jefferson and Adams off, and I'd probably put Ayuk and Tyreek. Those would be my receivers. Juszczyk's a no-brainer. Josh Jacobs, really? Is he the best back in the game? What? No way.
Jefferson my bad. Jefferson's been playing. He had 12 for 192 the other day.
He's a great player, but he missed a bunch of games, didn't he?
Yeah.
And Jacobs, what? No, Jacobs can't be
People are
there.
saying this is last year's list.
It's got to be last year's list. This says 2023. Is this?
This might be the 24 list you need.
Oh, wait a second. Let me look up. Maybe I googled the wrong list. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see. Type in 2024. That's got to be last year's list. Jacobs has not been good. Okay. Let's see. 2024. Nothing's coming up here. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. Now I've got the list. I was going to say that's got to be last year's list because that list was last year's team.
Yeah, Schefter tweeted. I saw somebody said too. Do you have it?
No, I don't have it. Do you have it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Lamar, quarterback.
Oh yeah,
Lamar,
now I see it.
Running back Christian, fullback Kyle, Juszczyk, CeeDee Lamb, and Tyreek are the receivers. Kelsey, the tight end. Trent Williams, the left tackle. Left guard Batonio and Tyler Smith from Dallas. Jason Kelsey, Zach Martin, Lane Johnson. Edge rushers, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby. Misspelled his name.
Two X's.
Yeah. Nose tackle, Dexter Lawrence. Interior D-line, Chris Jones, Aaron Donald. Off-ball linebackers, Roquan Smith, Fred Warner. Corners, Deron Bland, Pat Surtain. Free safety, Jesse Bates. Strong safety, Kyle Hamilton. Keyshawn Nixon, Darius Davis, the returners. Brandon Schooler, core special teams. Brandon Aubrey, the all-pro kicker. AJ Cole, the punter. And Ross Matisick, the long snapper.
Yeah, as far as snubs there, I mean, Deron Bland is interesting because he's had a great year, but he's kind of boomer bust. He's also had he's made some amazing big plays, and if you look at some of the things he's done, I mean, he's truly, a wild card factor. Deron Bland leads all outside corners in the lowest EPA allowed as the nearest defender, according to Next Gen stats. He's got 5 pick sixes, but he's also boomer bust. I mean, he's also gotten toasted a bunch. So I don't know. I mean, he definitely is a gambler, but I think there probably is a more consistent corner than Bland. But those pick sixes are pretty impressive. I'll say this: there's no doubt in my mind that Kyle Hamilton belongs in that list. He is on the list, so that makes sense.
Yeah. How about the tight end? Like George Kittle, it's kind of the Brandon Ayuk. Kittle has
Kelsey definitely does not deserve it.
Well, he's second in yards, Kelsey. He is third in catches with 93. But Kittle leads all tight ends with 1,020 receiving yards.
Better blocker, much better blocker.
Better blocker, more explosives, more touchdowns. But, he's got 30 less catches. Kittle does than Kelsey. Evan Ingram had 114 catches this year.
George Ingram was phenomenal. I mean, to me, Ingram was a total force of nature. And I just think when you look at Kelsey, this is the worst season of his career. He failed to reach 1,000 receiving yards for the first time since 2015. He posted an average of 10.6 yards per catch. That's by far his career low. And he makes the All-Pro team.
The NFLPA All-Pro team. That's like the NBA players MVP.
It's a rep deal. It's a rep deal.
But Kittle's tight end you.
Right. I mean, I just think that
maybe tight ends don't vote.
Or maybe they don't vote enough.
Yeah.
Lamar's the quarterback, so I mean that makes sense. He's been fantastic. I'd give him my MVP vote. So those are interesting. How about this one? It's not a super, but the Sentinel. Thank you. The Sentinels football channel. Who is the weakest link on this 49er team?
Well, they rotate guards.
John Feliciano's played pretty well.
He has played very well. I was thinking more about Burford. Once upon a time you would have said Ambry Thomas, but I don't think that's the case.
He's played really well. I like Ambry a lot.
Safety if Jair Brown doesn't come back. Interior D line if Eric Armstead doesn't come back, but you got Javon Hargrave. It's not anybody else on all. It's not a receiver. It's not a tight end. It's not a quarterback. It's not a running back. I mean, those would be the candidates, right?
Kicker.
Yes. Kicker. So
we haven't gotten your thoughts on the Moody man. What do you think? I mean, would you call Robbie Gould? Would you call Zane Gonzalez?
Nothing you can do.
There's nothing you can do?
I don't think there's anything you can do. You cannot bring Zane Gonzalez in.
Zane Gonzalez kicked very consistently in the preseason, though.
Before getting hurt. You got to see. You got to find out, right?
I think ride with Moody. And
well, the history tells us that kickers get better, right? It's why a lot of these guys get cut, and then you look up, you're like, oh, Daniel Carlson's one of the best kickers in the league. Okay, well, how about that?
That is true. That is true. Kickers typically do get better, and they're even wasn't Vinatieri, who's like a Hall of Fame type kicker, wasn't he cut early on? I think he
was.
Might have been.
By who?
He might have been
before he was on the Patriots.
Yeah, I think he did. I think he was. Let me look that up.
It's tough because when you're drafting a kicker, you're doing it, especially in the third round. You're doing it because you really need one. Like it's a desperate situation, and you're kind of going for it. And so all their kicks have all this pressure on them, and missing is just going to be part of the deal. But I'll probably do a video on this a little bit later, Larry. So I want your opinion now.
Oh, that's right. You said you did a deep dive on kickers.
Yeah, and I won't bore you with all the numbers here, but I'll do a video later. But I want your opinion. Basically, I think a lot of people are getting wrong what the issue is, and I had multiple people text me this yesterday. Well, Robbie missed a handful of kicks last year, Gold, and look at Justin Tucker. Justin Tucker misses kicks. But the problem is not that you miss a kick. I think the thing that scares people, and I think it's appropriate, I don't think it's an overreaction to be on edge when Moody steps up at a big spot. It's that when you miss, does it feel like you know how to fix it immediately or not? And Moody has now had 2 games this year, the Cleveland game and this game against the Rams on Sunday, where he missed twice in the same game. Well, Tucker has not missed twice in the same game this year. Robbie Gould did not miss twice in the same game last year. And that is really the issue. The issue is not, do you sometimes miss? The issue is, when you miss, is it a fluke or is something happening that you have to fix? And then can you fix it on the fly immediately? That is the heart of what I think. That is the verbalization of what you feel when you watch Moody. Remember the Cleveland game when he missed the game winner? He'd already missed a kick in that game. That was deep. It was a 50-yarder, fine. But what made it so terrifying the other day was it felt like the preseason where he missed the field goal week 18 against the Rams, and then 5 minutes later misses the extra point, right?
Right.
That's what made it feel like, does he know how to fix it? And that is the heart of the issue. It's not, don't give me percentage makes or whatever. It's that. If he misses a big kick in a game, it happens all the time. You run the guy out, he makes the next one, right? Like most of these guys, they miss a kick. That's the one they missed that day.
Right.
And with him, he hasn't missed that many. So credit to him for that. But you do worry, to say they come in bunches would be dramatic because he hasn't missed enough to say that. But that is actually the concern. It's when he misses, is he going to miss again, or does he know how to fix it and correct? Because it felt like the other day, not only did he not correct, he missed it the same way. And he's made plenty of kicks that look kind of like the misses, where you go, it starts kind of middle and then goes and yanks to the right, right? And you're like, is the alignment on this car off? Like what is going on here? Right? And that's what it looks like. It's like a car without power steering sometimes. It's
and how do they help him? I mean, how do they help him? I mean, the thing is, they were at
nobody
29th.
knows anything, Larry. Nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
Nobody can help you. Like
they were 29th in field goal attempts, so they tried to protect him as much as they could. Heck, Brock Purdy has almost made him obsolete how good he is in the red zone. If this were Jimmy Garoppolo, we'd know a lot more about Jake Moody's competence right now than we do.
Maybe. I mean, Robbie had 32 attempts last year, but only 23 the year before. Moody had 25 this year. So it was, the year before. But you're right, they had less field goal attempts this year. But this is the scary part about being a kicker. Like, if you're a pitcher, you could actually go to the hitters and be like, hey, what are you seeing? Oh, you're kind of tipping your curveball. If you're a quarterback and you're struggling, you can talk to the receivers like, hey, guys, let's get on the same page here. You spend all the time in the world with the punter and the long snapper, and neither one of those guys have any idea. Like, they have an idea, but they don't do what you do. Oh, well, maybe I'll talk to the holder. He's the closest guy to me. Who's the holder? Oh, it's Juszczyk. He's over there with the receivers and the running backs. Like, you are on an island when you're one of these guys. It's tough. Like, no, there's a special teams coach. What does that guy do? He holds up the chart and it's like, all right, we're going to cover. We're going to come this way on this punt cover.
Right.
But he doesn't.
It's a middle return. It's a left return.
How about
right
kick it through the end zone? How about that?
Yeah.
But
kick it through the back of the end zone.
He's not your like kicking guru guy. That guy's in Australia somewhere. So I don't.
So we just pray. In other words, just say a prayer.
Essentially,
go down to the local church and light a candle.
It's basically it.
I mean, I hate that. It absolutely kills me.
Larry, what would you do? What do you recommend?
I'll tell you what I would do is I would hold a high profile kicker tryout and let him know that we're thinking in that direction, because the only thing that gets people right is when there's competition. I believe that this country was founded on competition.
Beautiful.
And
that's how everybody is.
I would have a competition and just say, hey, we're looking around, buddy. So you got the divisional round.
Arm around him and go, did you miss I didn't even see it. You missed a kick last week. Didn't even notice. Love you, bro. Slap him on the ass and get on.
That's what it sounds like Kyle's approach is.
It is what he's doing.
All right, 2 last questions and we'll jet. What happens if the Niners fall behind? The Niners have had a halftime lead in 11 of their 12 victories. They were tied in the other one. They've trailed entering the third quarter 3 times. They lost all 3 times. One of the big questions is, if the Niners are trailing in the second half, how does Purdy perform? How does Moody perform? Heck, you could argue, how does Kyle coach? What happens if the Niners fall behind? Why can't they come from behind under Shanahan? You've seen the numbers. Is there the Niners have all this talent and they've been there, they've got experience, but they look a little bit fragile in that they have to have the game go their way or they don't win it. I never felt like they were going to beat the Ravens. These games that they're behind, you never feel like they're going to come from behind. They have to get it their way. It's like they have to defer to the second half, get the third quarter score, get a late score at the end of the second, combine that with another score at the beginning of the third. I mean, they have a formula, the way they like to win games. And then when it doesn't go according to their formula, they don't win. But they get the formula and they've got a lot of talent. What do you make of the fact that the Niners are this kind of unique team that if they fall behind, they seem cooked?
Not everything about them. So much about them in this whole era where I watch them and I'm like, yeah, that's what a good football team looks like, is bizarre. Like being last year, right? Having the roster they had, even having the roster they have this year. It's crazy to have the last pick of the draft be your quarterback and everybody else be just like half the Pro Bowl team. The rosters are not, it doesn't happen like that. And this thing that we're talking about where you're not just talking about the 0 of 38 when trailing in the fourth quarter by 8 points or more. You're just talking about the big picture of how different it feels they are just based on the which way the scoreboard is weighted. And it's weird to me. Like I've said for a long time, and I use a dangerous word, which is the word front runner, which is a word for mentally soft people and teams. They are not that, but they are a very different team. It feels like when they are in front, which maybe you'd argue a lot of teams are like that. Like Texas probably would have been that way 2 weeks ago against Washington, Michigan. is that way, right? Like if Washington was up 17-3, does that ever become a game again? Michigan just wants to, if you are a team that really wants to run the football, and I think this is the other element, right? Kyle's like a boxer he's not trying necessarily to knock you out in the first or second quarter. He is playing a long game. He understands that the game is physical, the game is tiring, that so what if my ball carrier gets 3 yards in a cloud of dust in the first quarter or the second quarter? By the third quarter, that's going to be 3.5. And by the fourth quarter, that's going to be 3.9. I'm going to wear you down. This is a game played by humans. I'm going to rely on the physicality of human beings. And that's why him and Jim are similar in that way. And I love that style of football. It works. But it's not paired with an over-the-top pass game. And I think it's probably I don't know exactly where to put the finger on this, Larry. We watched a lot of Niners in training camp. They didn't hit deep balls in training camp at all, like hardly any, right? Throwing Debo with a go ball, just he doesn't separate there. He separates when you get on the ball 5 yards around the line of scrimmage or 9 yards or 15 yards over the middle and then let him go. But if you put a one-on-one on the perimeter and just tell him to go, like that doesn't work. And that's what you have to do to score fast. They're weird because they get all these chunk plays. They get like these, like look at Kittle. He's like 15 yards per catch. I mean, Ayuk is off the charts. They get these humongous plays. And yet, if it's, 27, let's say 17, it's a 2-score game with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Like, how are they going to score fast enough to get the ball and then score fast again? And I think it's that. Like, I think that's the heart of it. I wonder if they had a Julio type, Julio and Matt Ryan, Julio and Matt Stafford, like that combination, if they would actually be able to eliminate it faster. They've gotten better. My analogy has long been the old Pete Carroll Princeton teams, the Princeton offense. They're not going to hit a bunch of threes. It's a very methodical march down the field. They've gotten better at that because they have been willing to open it up more with Brock than with Jimmy. But there is still an element of that to them. When I watch the 49ers, the one thing I always do is I always count possessions. And if you count possessions, you'll look up at the end of the first quarter, and it'll be the third overall possession of the game. For either, it'll be like Niners got the ball, opponent got the ball, Niners get the ball, they run 3 plays, and the first quarter ends. So when you watch them, you should be very aware of how many possessions there are. There's not a lot. Like, you'll be halfway through the third quarter. That Ravens game, you're counting possessions. You're like, they got to score right now because there's like 2 possessions left in this game for them. And I that's where they're weird. That's where I have a
What do
hard
you think
time.
of Bobby Mira's thing where they don't play with tempo? I mean, they played with tempo. I asked Kyle about this. I said, "Did you ever go hurry up?" And he's like, "We did when we first got here." But it's like they definitely don't go hurry up. And I wonder if they can play in a hurry up mode.
Yeah, they should be able to, right? Like, because they put a defense on its heels and they have so many. To me, when you have a tight end that blocks and when you have receivers that block and you have a fullback that can catch the ball, you should be able to play with tempo because you shouldn't have to substitute that much, right? The old positionless basketball thing. You should be able to run different stuff, make Kittle a wide receiver in this particular play call. Use Juice as your second tight end on this other play call. Use Debo and Ayuk to run block, right? Like and Jennings or whoever, right? You should be able to run tempo with a team that has so many players that can do so many things. So it's odd to me that they can't or that they won't. Maybe they just haven't been in the position enough times to get good at that. I don't know, but it doesn't totally make sense to me. And I know everyone always says, "Well, it's their drop back game. It's their drop back game." Yeah, I mean, but again, like they hit explosives. Do they not hit them in the way that you have to hit them when the other team knows you're down by 10 with 6 minutes left? Maybe, which is just 50-50 YOLO balls to Justin Jefferson or Stephon Diggs or whoever, right? Tyreek.
My son badly wanted me to ask you about Casey Hayward. What do you think? I mean, they worked out Casey Hayward. They're obviously looking for a slot.
What does he think about Casey Hayward?
Well, I mean, I think he's looking to make a video about it.
Okay. All right. Got
it. But what do you make of that? I mean, there's a couple, they're looking for another corner. Jason Verrett went down. They worked out Casey Hayward. They probably worked out some other guys. Is that a concern that that they're looking for corners still. Does it say some speed? Does it tell you that they don't trust Darrell Luter and Samuel Womack? Do you trust Samuel Womack and Darrell Luter? Mick says Casey's like 34, right? Yeah, he's long in the tooth. He went to Vandy. He's had a decent NFL career. What do you think of them working out Casey Hayward?
I mean, they just don't have any. They don't have much depth at that position. I, I think you go back to Jason Verrett returning, and that was a red flag for them that it was going to come to that. They thought Jason Verrett's fight to get on the football field repeatedly in his career is admirable.
Yeah.
But if it came to Jason Verrett playing the NFC Championship game, that's a pretty scary thought. Now, this is where Steve Wilks, this is part of what Steve Wilks does for you. This is the position he coaches. You and I have been to a lot of practices. When everyone breaks out into position groups, it's Steve Wilks hands-on with the DBs, with the corners and with the safeties. So if anybody can get corners up to speed quickly, I think the Niners are at the top of the list because this is Steve's deal. But, if you're playing Casey Hayward with Gibson, Brown, Ward, and let's say Lenore's healthy, okay. When Armstead's healthy and if everybody's healthy and Hayward is the outlier, okay, fine, maybe. Or put player X in there, Jason Verrett, whoever. But if it's Brown's out and Armstead's out and Hayward's rotating in because Ambry's out, that's a problem. But Larry, all these teams are in this position at the end of the year. You mentioned who some of these guys the Dolphins are signing.
And the Niners have done this before. I mean, if you go back under
they
the
are
Kyle
healthier
era,
than most years. They've had some unhealthy years.
They've had some December and January, veteran corner additions: Janoris Jenkins, Josh Norman, Dre Kirkpatrick, Darqueze Dennard. I mean, Hayward's 34. He's been out of ball all year. He's remained unsigned all season. He's last played for the Falcons for the first 6 games of the 2022 regular season. He started and was targeted 27 times. He gave up 15 receptions. I just think that, they obviously want to go the veteran route. They feel more comfortable. I think that if the Niners are going to win the Super Bowl, they're 5 young DBs: Lenore, Jair, Luter, Ambry, and Womack. They got to play ball. You got 5 young DBs. You got a great DB coach. You got a big defensive front in front of those guys. Those 5 young DBs have got to stand up if they're going to win it all. I don't think you're going to be able to go off the scrap heap in week 18 and find some solution. I don't buy it. I think they got to get Womack and Luter ready to roll, or they're just going to lose. That's how I see it. I think those young DBs
I think you got to
play.
If you get one of those 2 guys to play well for you, that's a win. If you told me right now you want to roll the dice and you'll get really good productive play out of Womack and Luter, or guarantee that one of them solid, I'd say guarantee one of them solid. I think you're in good shape if Ambry's back healthy or healthy-ish.
I entitled this stream "Purdy Hates Game Manager Moniker," and we'll finish with this topic. And I wanted to play the cut, but we haven't been. I can't get it to play off Twitter. But basically, Mark Schlereth on the Stinkin' Truth podcast with Mark Schlereth and another guy, and I'm not sure who the other guy is, says, talked about how he had a conversation with Brock Purdy, and that Brock Purdy told Schlereth, anyone that calls me a game manager is either not watching the film or doesn't know what they're looking at. I love that Brock Purdy said that. He's never really said that, but he has said 3 or 4 times to me this year, yeah, we'll just see how it all ends up. He's keeping receipts, and he is going to say game manager this MFers, but he wants to do it while he's holding the Lombardi trophy, wearing his cap backwards on the stage in Vegas. You know what I'm saying? He's going to say, he wants to say, I told you so, but he doesn't want to say it until he can really lean in and say it.
And even then, he won't say, I told you so. He'll be satisfied he'll be satisfied with the visual, right? Which I think is the best kind of competitor at that position, is to be that guy. who doesn't. There's no reason to add that pressure to yourself to say anything. Especially when I remember you laughed about this when they gave him the game ball. What game was that? And he said afterwards, like, well, how did he phrase it? Like, I couldn't,
He
don't,
well,
it's not
he's
just
like,
me.
he's like, I could. Hey guys, look, I couldn't do this all by myself. It's not just me. I mean, like
And everyone's
that.
like, yeah, that's fine. We know.
That it came across like a little on the arrogant side, but you know what?
To
I
me,
mean,
you know what, Larry? I thought it was. Sorry to interrupt you, but to me,
no,
I
go ahead.
watched after you said it. I watched. I'm like, let's go see. And it just came across to me like a guy who he doesn't do that a lot.
Right,
He just
right,
didn't quite
right.
know what to say.
And he's a humble guy.
Yeah, it didn't come out the
He's the
way. I think
his
everyone knew what he
humility is
meant.
one of his strengths. It's one of the reasons he's won over the room.
Yes. Yeah. You can't look. You cannot walk in there and act like you're the man with all these guys that are the man and have done it before. You earn that by doing, not by saying. And I think that's who he is. I thought it was really impressive when he had that press conference at his locker after the announcement, that I don't remember if it was like, it probably wasn't the announcement. He was going to need surgery. It was his exit. I think it was his locker room exit interview. And he said, there's a lot of things that I say I am. And now is my chance to prove that I am what I say I am, that I live my life the way I say I live my life. And I thought it was a very insightful comment from him. Very understanding that there's one thing to say, I walk a certain path, but then after years of saying it, something gets presented to you and it's like, all right, I said this is who I am. Let's find out if I am. I thought that was really impressive. He was telling everybody, we're all about to find out if I am what I say I am. And he believes that he believed it. That's why he knew that's who he was to his core. That's why he said it. But I thought that was pretty telling about Brock, how he thinks, what he's willing to communicate. All right. The only time he has said basically like, watch this is on an injury rehab. And he told everybody like, watch, like, all right, let's find out. He didn't say, I'm going to come back better than ever. He said, we're all going to find out if I am who I say I am together. That's pretty special. That's pretty special.
He's a special guy, man. There's no question. If you saw his senior day at Iowa State and Dan Campbell got choked up, and the guy's a special guy, and the Niners are very fortunate to have him. That's going to do it for us. Bazzy Mian says, I love that Brock obviously has a chip on his shoulder. All the great ones do. He's been disrespected plenty. Yeah, it's called boulder shoulder. That's what he's got. He's got boulder shoulder. And one last super from Vicky. Vicky, you could be right. She says, J.J. McCarthy will be drafted higher than Michael Penix and will be the better quarterback in the NFL going forward. Penix will be an NFL bust. Well, Penix definitely has an awesome arm, the best arm I've seen in a long time. But he's also got a lot of physical issues, and those physical issues could keep him out of the first round. We'll see. I don't know, man. Michael Penix has got a pretty special arm. McCarthy, though, big house. I mean, you played for Michigan. If you can do it in the big house, typically you can do it in the NFL, but we'll see. We'll see. Something about him is not right with me. I'm not sure what it is, but I got to do more studying. I haven't studied McCarthy that much.
I mean, if you're talking about a top 15 quarterback, you're talking about like, does he carry you as a passer? And the answer is, that's not what they asked him to do. The answer is no.
Yeah. I like McCarthy's, personality and everything, but
he's a good athlete.
He's a good athlete. He can run a little bit,
but I don't think he's like a pure passer.
No, I don't either. And Penix has got one of the greatest arms I've ever seen. I think I was watching you the night that you might have been in the studio the night last year when the Huskies played on like one of the windiest nights ever in Seattle against somebody, and the opposing quarterback basically wouldn't throw the ball at all. And Penix was just throwing lasers through that wind like it was nothing. But Penix also has terrible mechanics, and his body's been beat up, and he needs some development for sure. But man, there'll be teams that will take a chance on that arm because that arm is crazy. That's as good an arm. That's a Flacco arm. That's a Terry Bradshaw arm. I mean, that's a once in every decade kind of an arm. That kid's got.
See, I'm surprised to hear you say that.
Oh, he can throw lasers.
I know, but it's imagine how much stronger his arm would be if he used his lower body.
I know. But when the guy wants to throw lasers, Wow. I mean, he does
and has
throw.
time and space. That's the other thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. His whole line, protected him well, but at the next level, we'll see if he can take the hits because he's had some major injuries. I mean, but man, I mean, when you see this guy go to the combine and throw, I think people are going to be like, "What? This guy? Look at this guy." Um, what do you think? I mean, you saw him against Bo Nix. Do you like Bo Nix better or do you like him better?
Ooh, I like Penix better most of the year. I voted Penix for Heisman. I think Nix will get drafted ahead of him just because of, not just because of, but the athletic element to him. Penix throws the ball down the field a lot more than Bo did. I mean, Penix is kind of it's not old school or traditional, but he's a 65% passer, not because he's inaccurate, but because he pushes the ball down the field a lot. You kind of see that less now, right? You see like these guys that are rolling in with like 71% completion percentages. You're like, what? Is this even real? So I like him. I like him at the end of the first round. I think Nix goes ahead of him. I think Nix might have a better arm, but he's just a more physical player. I think the concern with Penix isn't just that he ended 4 straight seasons with injuries, Larry, including 2 ACLs. Right? But if you've watched him the last month, he's hurt. He's playing hurt against Michigan. He's playing hurt against Oregon. He's getting killed. And he's like always holding his rib or, he gets peppered and it seems to hurt him. But he is tough. He plays through all that stuff. But yeah, I'd love to see him. Like, I think what he needs is if you put Nix on a badish team, you could scheme, like, we're going to do some quarterback run. We're just going to do some simple throws. And, you could take a badish team and win a few games, if you ran kind of an offense that fit. I think Penix needs to be like a good scheme, good quarterback system, good scheming, like good play caller. And I think he'd be better in that spot where you ask him to make a bunch of like NFL throws, but you give him like, he'd be good for Kyle. Kyle would like him. Yeah, I think so.
Wow. He might be on the board at the end of the first round. You're the man. Seriously. I love streaming with you. This was fantastic. We're going to try to do this on the regular guys channel. Everybody sign up over there. If you're here for the first time, please sign up over here. We're doing regular streams and videos. And Guy, when are you streaming next? When do you and John go next?
Probably good question. We don't, I talked to people. I asked Larry the day, what's your schedule? And Larry gave me like a time by time, day by day schedule. I was like, holy smokes. We just text each other and say, you want to do something? I may do a Moody. I did all this Moody kicker research. I'll probably do a Moody stream later today. So go subscribe over there and we'll dive in a little bit more on Moody and Tucker and Robbie Gould and that sort of thing.
I stream tonight with Kev. We do our call-in show and probably go tonight at 7:00. So join us tonight for that. My son's doing a hell of a job growing the channel, he's gonna join me for a little video call stream tonight with some of our video callers. And feel free to jump in. We always love taking video calls, and we'll talk a lot of Niners tonight. So, last mention. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle, the title sponsor of the Krueger Show. Thanks to New York Style Italian Sausage. Thanks to Marin Auto Glass. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy and Mojo Fantasy. Check that link in the description. Use the promo code Krug, and they'll match you up to your first $100. And Guy, before you get out of here, thank your sponsors once more.
Tito's handmade vodka, crafted to be savored responsibly. Game Time app, gametime.co, promo code ham, get you $25 off. And butcherbox.com/ham, promo code ham. All kinds of great deals over at ButcherBox. Get you some meat.
This guy's the best right here, Guy Haberman. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Larry.
Really enjoyed it. One of my favorite streams of the week, and I think we're going to do great stuff on the regular. Have a great day, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you ask.